We're going to crash? This can't be true. Look, I have covered a lot of aviation disasters, but this one's different. So picture this, you are flying over the Atlantic at 2 a.m. Everything's normal. Your autopilot's handling everything. Then suddenly, boom, ice crystals hit your plane and your whole world turns upside down. What happened next? Well, it's honestly one of the most confusing things I've ever studied. And the scary part? It could have been prevented so easily. I spent weeks going through the investigation reports for this video, and guys, I'm not gonna lie, some of this stuff kept me up at night. Because when you really understand what happened to Air France 447, it changes how you think about flying forever. But here's what really got me, this wasn't some freak accident. This was a series of small misunderstandings that snowballed into something catastrophic. Alright, so May 31st, 2009. Flight 447 is heading from Rio to Paris. Pretty routine stuff, happens every day. You've got 228 people on board, 3 experienced pilots, and one of the newest aircraft in the fleet. Now here's where it gets interesting. Around 2 a.m., they're cruising over the Atlantic when they hit some thunderstorms. Nothing crazy, pilots deal with this all the time. But then something happens that nobody expected. So the aircraft starts picking up ice crystals, again, totally normal. But these crystals? They clog up these little sensors called pitot tubes. Think of them like the aircraft's speedometer. Now when that happens, the plane basically goes, I don't know how fast we're going, and just gives up. The autopilot disconnects. All the fancy computer systems switch off. Suddenly, these pilots have to hand-fly this massive aircraft in the middle of a storm. And this is where everything goes wrong. The first officer grabs the controls and his first instinct is to pull back, climb away from the danger. Makes sense, right? When you're in trouble, you go up. But here's the thing that's absolutely mind-blowing. The aircraft was flying perfectly fine. The ice cleared up in like 3 seconds. The airspeed readings came back. Everything was normal. But the pilots never realized this. For over 4 minutes, they're fighting an aircraft that's trying to save their lives. So picture this chaos. You've got warnings going off everywhere, the aircraft is behaving strangely, and you're flying manually for the first time in who knows how long. The first officer keeps pulling back, and the plane keeps climbing. 35,000 feet, 36,000, 37,000, 38,000 feet. In just over a minute, they climbed 3,000 feet. That's insane. Meanwhile, the aircraft is screaming at them, stall, 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 for 54 seconds straight. But in all that chaos, they don't recognize what's happening. The captain rushes back to the cockpit. Now you've got 3 pilots, all looking at the same instruments, all completely confused about what's going on. What's happening? I don't know what's happening. We're losing control. But here's the tragic part, they're not losing control. They're causing the problem. Every time they pull back, they're making the stall worse. It's like when your car starts skidding and you slam on the brakes, your instinct makes everything worse. By the time they're at 10,000 feet, one pilot finally gets it. Don't climb. Go down. But it's too late. They're falling at 10,000 feet per minute. That's faster than a skydiver. The aircraft is completely intact. Both engines are running perfectly, but they're pointing the nose up while falling like a rock. It's honestly one of the most heartbreaking things you can imagine. These pilots are trying everything they know, but their training just didn't prepare them for this. At 2,500 feet, the ground proximity warning goes off. Pull up, pull up. So what do? They pull back even harder. 35 seconds later, Air France 447 hits the ocean at 107 miles per hour. Nose up, wings level. All 228 people on board lost their lives. And the hardest part? The aircraft never broke. The engines never failed. The flight controls worked perfectly the entire time. It took them 2 years to find the wreckage at the bottom of the Atlantic. When they finally analyzed the black boxes, the truth was shocking. This wasn't mechanical failure. This wasn't weather. This was a training problem. These pilots had never practiced high-altitude stall recovery because modern aircraft are so reliable, so automated, that pilots rarely hand-fly anymore. Think about it. When's the last time you drove a car without power steering? Same concept. We've become so dependent on technology that we've forgotten the basics. Now here's what really gets me. This could have happened to any pilot on any airline, anywhere in the world. The same training gap existed everywhere. Your pilot on your next flight? Before 2009, they might not have known how to handle this situation either. That's terrifying, right? But here's the silver lining. Air France 447 changed everything. Every airline now mandates high-altitude stall training. Every pilot learns the golden rule. When you're confused, lower the nose first, ask questions later. So what's the takeaway here? Sometimes your instincts are your worst enemy. When everything's going wrong, when you're scared, when nothing makes sense, sometimes the right thing to do feels completely wrong. These pilots weren't incompetent. They weren't reckless. They were human beings doing what felt right in an impossible situation. And that's what makes this story so tragic, but also so important. Today, flying is actually safer because of what happened to Flight 447. Every pilot knows this story. Every airline has learned from these mistakes. Modern aircraft have better sensors, better training, better procedures. Those 228 people didn't die in vain if we keep learning from their story. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about these things, not to scare people, but to understand how we can do better. Look, I know this story is heavy, but I think there's something powerful about understanding what happened. These weren't just statistics. These were real people with families, dreams, plans for the future. If this story taught you something, or if it made you think differently about aviation, let me know in the comments. And if you want to dive deeper into stories like this, subscribe because honestly, there's so much more to explore. Flying is still the safest way to travel. But understanding how we got to that point? That's what makes these stories so important. What aviation mystery should we look at next? Drop your suggestions below. I read every single comment.